In this video, I'm going to show you how to make a cotton candy plush toy. You can decide to hand sew it or machine sew it. It's totally up to you. So download that free printable pattern and let's go. Let's make it. Cotton candy toy, I'm very excited to get started with. And you'll notice it's really simple to put together and you don't even need that many things. Of course, I have most of the things we need here, but we are missing the stuffing and thread, and I really can't think of anything else. I think that's it. So the new thing that we're going to be using are the decorator needles. So if you, for some reason, couldn't get these needles, these longer needles, it's okay. You can use a regular embroidery needle. It'll be just fine. So if you do have it, you'll have a chance to work with these super long needles. And I'm going to be using my chopstick for the stuffing, especially the cotton candy holder. It comes down to that fine point, so we need to stuffing there. And the pins, like we always need, your shears. I am using this white canvas cotton. It's a little bit stiffer and thicker. You can choose to even use felt if you want. Anything a bit stiffer will work nicer, but if you have regular cotton fabric, that's fine. And then I'm using this really low pile plush in pink, because cotton candy is usually pink, but who says yours needs to be pink? You can do whatever you want, like I always tell you. And this project only has 2 pieces, and for here you're attaching the top, and I've attached this so many times in the past projects that I figured you don't need me to do this for you again. So just in case, I'm going to point out, you're going to cut out from the number 2 piece. There's only 2 pieces you're printing. You're going to cut this one out and just place it right on top there, so it is one sort of half circle. And this here is a dart. All right, so just 2 pieces. I told you it was simple. All right, let's get this going. So we're going to cut 3 of these on the fold of the fabric. So if you look at your short pile or low pile plush, depending on which one you bought, they may both look like the right sides, and it's actually true. You can use the shorter side or the longer side. So for this particular project, I want mine to be the shorter side. So the longer side is going to be the wrong side of the fabric for me. And your fabric may also be one that is smooth on the wrong side, so that's even easier for you. It depends on where you got your fabric and which plush you have. It really doesn't matter which side you choose, but obviously if you have this one, you want the fuzzier side. So you have to place it on the fold of the fabric, and you know what that means now. And this right here is, let me move this over. This right here is a dart. So you're going to keep that in mind as you're cutting. So I'm going to place this to the very close edge of the fold. And you're going to notice when you're working with plush, if this is your first time, it does move, meaning your patterns may move. So just keep that in mind as you're working, that you may have to adjust as you add pins, or just double check it. I'm just going to add extra pins for extra security, just to make sure it doesn't move. And now I'm going to get started. And when you're cutting plush, you're going to notice you're going to have all little fuzzies going everywhere. Sometimes you'll actually find them in your nose, or they'll irritate your nose. And my students will always say, oh my gosh, it's in my nose. And I say, hey, look, I'm sorry. This is definitely an experience. So when you cut this is what I wanted to show you. I want you to cut the dart here, because we're going to sew that. Okay, so you're going to do this 3 times. So you should have 3 pieces of the cotton candy body. I also want to show you another trick that some people who sew do. So instead of pins, they use weights. And if you look on any sewing store or even on Amazon and you search up sewing weights or paper weights or pattern weights, you'll find really cool things. Like you might even find like donuts or like cute little duckies, like cute heavy things. They're basically paper weights. These are from the local hardware store, and they're really large washers. So instead of spending money on something that was whatever created to look cute, I just get these washers. That was a trick I learned from another seamstress. So if you want to try this, you can get it at your local, whatever you're near, Home Depot, whatever large store you have near you. And they work by holding down the pattern paper and you cut all the way around, as I struggle here. So this is also an option for you if you want to try to do it this way. And you will cut one of your cotton candy holder cones. Kind of looks like a pizza here, right? A pizza with pepperoni on it. Always cutting on the wrong side of the fabric. All right, so my 3 cotton candy body pieces are cut out, and so is my holder. I was like, wait, what's this called again? My cotton candy holder. Well, that's what I called it. So what we're going to do first, on all 3 of the pieces of the cotton candy bodies, we're going to put them right sides together, and we're going to sew the dart closed. So make sure for this you definitely pin it as usual. I'm going to use 2 pins. And I'm going to keep about 1/4 inch from the edge, and I'm going to sew back stitching on each end. And I'm going to use red thread so you can see it. And before I sew, I'm going to set my machine to a larger stitch, about between a 3 and a 4, so that it has enough room to walk and easily feed through the machine. I've sewn the darts on all 3 pieces, and my intention for using red was, of course, to show you or allow you to see my stitches, but of course the plush hides everything. Very forgiving, like I like to say, even with the fleece. So now what we're going to do is we're going to put these all right sides together and sew them together. So I should say one by one. So right side of one, you're just going to match and make sure that the darts are both on the ends, so you have the correct ends, and you are going to match it, keeping it neat and pinning together. Did I mention I have my vacuum cleaner hand by every time I cut with plush? I have to have my vacuum cleaner here. I have my brush. I'm constantly wiping. These fuzzies get everywhere, just saying. So think about before you cut where you're cutting. So what I'm going to do now, again, with about 1/4 inch or even more, the same seam allowance, always keep it the same for the project. I'm going to start here, do my back stitch, and I'm going to come all the way around up to the top. And I'm going to stop right at the top here. And you know it's the top because it's straight. Okay, and you can see that also from the pattern. It's straight up there. So that's where we're going to stop. Okay, so I've sewn from one point to the end here, back stitching on both ends, and I'm going to do the same exact thing as I open it up and see the correct sides. I'm going to do the same exact thing to this one. Line it up the same way and do the same exact sewing. It kind of walks when the plushes are put together. They kind of move when you put them together. So definitely be careful before you sew or as you're sewing that they're still lined up. Okay, to the machine. So my body of the cotton candy pieces are all sewn together, all 3. And you can see that my darts are down here. And here are the 2 sides I put together and the darts here. So now what we're going to do is we are going to attach the cone or the holder part of the cotton candy, and it's going to go right side to right side. So I'm going to make sure these are facing right sides together. And what you're going to do is make a little snippet. You're going to fold it right sides together and create a tiny little snip there, so you know that that is your center. That's all you need, is very little. And on the middle here, dart, you're going to place your little cut slit right there. So now you know that they are matched. And you're going to match it up, and it can come up a little bit extra, can come over the edge if you need, because sometimes depending if this is stretchy, it may seem like it doesn't fit, and you may have to adjust it, and I will show you what I mean by that. So notice how I'm coming here and there's like a little extra here. If you have a lot extra, you're going to want to go back and you're going to want to re-sew. Don't take anything out. You don't have to. You're going to sew this dart in more. So you're taking more fabric, and the seam here, you're going to sew the seam in more. Go in however much more you need to go in. Sew it again so you make the body a little bit smaller. Sometimes this happens if you're using a stretchy fabric. So I'm going to just try and save some here. I'm going to scrunch it up a little because it's plush. It allows me to scrunch it up, and you can't really tell. If I was using regular cotton fabric, that would be a no-no. It would be all puckered. It would just look bad. It looked like a mistake. Okay, and I'm going to continue here and here. I'm going to bring it in. If it sticks out about that much, that's okay, because you'll have that for your seam allowance. Okay, so since this is plush, I'm going to use an extra little pin here and there. I'm sort of telling it, you better behave. Okay, and once I do this, I am going to sew right along this edge. I'm going to keep just the curve a tiny bit. So I'm going to sew, and I'm going to backstitch on the ends. So I've sewn, just like I said, backstitching on the ends. All right, that's a simple part. So when you open it up or flip it over here, you can see it's already starting to look like the cotton candy that it is. So what we're going to do now is we're going to fold the whole project in half, right sides together. And I'm sure you can guess what the next step from here is. This could be really fun if you don't even go with the traditional colors like I did. You can do a really cool printed cone. Even a fluffier or a higher pile plush would look really cool here. Even ones with plushes with like sparkles in. Really, sky's the limit when it comes to sewing. So what you want to do here is you want to make sure that your seams are aligned. They're near each other and right on each other. And I'm going to put a pin right through that seam just to make sure that they stay. Behave now, like I always tell them. And I'm going to continue pinning all the way up this curved cotton candy body. All right, here we are. So I'm going to make sure they meet all the way up on top. And you know you're up on top when the curve stops and it's a straight line. So there's my top right there. Perfect. So what you're going to do now is you're going to sew either from this end or this end, whichever end you prefer. And you are going to start sewing and then backstitch. If you feel this little point may get stuck in your sewing machine, then why don't you start on this end? It doesn't matter, either end, but you're going to sew with the backstitch there all the way up. Then when you get up to here, I like to stop right in here with my sewing needle in there, and I like to do a little pivot and turn to pick up this curve. And then you're going to sew the entire curve just like you did here, and then you're going to backstitch right up there. Okay, so it's a straight sewing, a slight pivot, and all the way around, stop here, backstitch. It's sewn together. So the opening is up on top, and we're going to definitely use that for stuffing. And I've sewn just as I've said, right around here. And then the very tip, if you want, you can trim it just like we did in the very beginning with our pillows, our little square simple pillows. And now you're going to turn it right side out. I like to stick my thumb all the way to the bottom as far as I can to sort of guide it. But you know how that goes. You have a plan. And then sometimes the plan is kind of like, oh, all right. All right. It was worth it for some of it. And this is when I use my chopstick that I have here to try and help me get to the end of it. Okay, so I'm ready to stuff, and I turned the whole thing around, and I especially needed the chopstick to get to the very point there. So now from the top, I'm going to stuff, and of course, the furthest point away is this cone, so I'm going to be careful and take my time with small pieces of stuffing. I know people usually, when they stuff, they want to just get it done and take a whole bunch of stuffing and shove it in there. And I guess you can, but you'll get a lumpy, bumpy project. I say take your time. And work it all the way through. You know what? I'm going to try my dull scissors because the chopstick is slipping through. So I'm going to stuff the cone first. And I think I want to make the cone a bit more dense, meaning I'm going to put a lot more stuffing in here because I want it to be firm. There we go. Once you get the very point filled in, the rest really is a bit easier. But remember, as you're stuffing, if it's starting to look bumpy, fix it. Get in there with your fingers, whatever you need to do. Make it look good. You put all this hard work and you don't want it to be bumpy. Of course, my red thread is showing, and I was sewing with red purposely for you so that you can see what I did and my seams and where and how I sewed. But if you use white or coordinating thread, you won't have that issue. And continue stuffing. Cotton candy is completely stuffed and rather large on top, but we still have to add the tufts, and we're going to use our long needles to do that. But right now what we want to do is we want to close up the top. Okay, so we are going to use, or I'm going to use my regular needle that is double threaded with coordinating thread and has a double knot at the end. And I'm going to fold over just a little bit of the fabric, and I'm going to make large sort of basting stitches. You want to keep these stitches large because when you pull, you want it to scrunch together. And at the same time, you don't want the pulling to break your thread. So we're going to be careful of that. You can use a button thread if you have for this. I highly doubt you have a pink button thread, but if you have like a white button thread or carpet thread, a thick one, you can use for that. But if you're careful, it won't, it shouldn't rip. Okay, I keep checking. Notice how every time I add a few more stitches, I check if it got stuck somewhere. Because sometimes it can. All right. Right, I'm just gonna, I have a little bit more to go. And then I'm gonna show you how I close the whole thing. Okay, I think it pulled off a little bit somewhere, but that's okay. All fixable and doable. So you're going to want to keep this all together. here we go. I didn't get this little bunch, so let me fix that. Okay. And now I'm going to go across and just grab a little bit this way. And I'm going to go across the opposite way. And just keep changing my direction until I grab it all. You could do this 3 or 4 times. You won't see the thread. So no worries if you go a little bit deeper. And then when you have it all bunched like this, you're going to do an end off right in the center. So pull right through the needle through the loop. Do it again. Needle through the loop. Then put your needle in and out for an end off where you leave the end of the thread somewhere inside that stuffing. So this is almost done, but now what we have to do is we have to add our tufts, to add the little pokes in there to make it super cute. And then it's up to you if you want to add little pearls in the tufts or little sparklies or rhinestones, whatever it is that you want. So let's get going. We need our long needles, the decorator's needles, doll needles, whatever you want to call them. This is what we need here. And I'm going to use the middle size one. Again, you can do this with a regular one as well, a regular needle, because as you push it through, you can actually grab it through the other side. It's a little bit more work, but it's totally doable. So I'm going to thread this with actually my thicker thread. I've decided to use button thread, which is really thick, okay, and won't break, but you can use your regular thread and just double it and double knot it. So I'm going to thread my needle, or the eye of the needle. This one's really easy. It's super large. And then when it's there, what I'm going to do is make 1 knot. I don't want to make 2. I just want to make 1 to sort of, yep, it's strong enough. And then I'm going to make the thread about arm's length. And then at the end, I'm going to do more than a double knot. I'm going to do my twist sort of magic knot, so it's super thick. I think I might add, well, I think it's good enough. It might not slip out. And now I'm going to add my tufts. So tufts are those little pulls that you see sometimes in pillows. Sometimes you have the round pillows with the button in the center that's sort of pushed in. That's a tuft. So there's no directions here. There's no rules. You're just going to make some dimples all around just to give it some adorable texture. Start right here, and before I start, I'm going to do sort of like a saving end off stitch. So you see how I'm making this little stitch, and no one can see it because the plush is so forgiving, because I don't think my knot is going to hold through this plush. I feel like I'm going to push it through and it'll come out. So that's secured it in, and then I'm just going to stick my needle in right where I made my little holding knot, and I'm going to pull and see how I make a dimple. Now that definitely is not coming out because of that. All right, and then from there, I'm going to give just 1 pull, but I'm not going to make a knot, and I'm going to make another pull there. See how I did that? And now in, and I'm just bringing it anywhere. Okay, it's like totally, there's no rules or rhyme or reason for this. All right, so I'm just trying to place it as to where I'm putting them. I kind of like that there, so since I like it there, I'm going to pinch here, and I'm going to make a, as I get my skin, didn't hurt, but it did look painful, didn't it? I'm going to pull there. Okay, so see, now that's staying. All right, now I'm going to go down here. And I'm just, what you can see, I'm just creating dimples just wherever I feel like it. Now, since I have this much thread left, I'd say that's about 5 inches. I'm going to do an end off here, meaning I want to stop here in order to, in order to not run out of this thread. So I'm going to do that here. And here's how I finish this. If you can keep it down, you could do an end off there, or you could bring it back through the last dimple you made, or tuft. And then you can end off in there. I'm just playing with where it was, right in there. Okay? And then when I pull, I'm going to end off in here. And this, you know, you're going to play with. You're going to see it's something new, especially if you have the longer needle with you. You're like, hey, this is interesting, but you will get it. It just takes practice. My needle just popped out, but look at what I'm doing. I'm just going to tie it. Okay, and I'm going to continue this process until I get a few more dimples into this cotton candy. But I only did one end off there, and I want to secure it with two, so don't cut it off until you do your second one. So I'm going to use my smaller needle because it's shorter to finish off that end off. Okay, now using the shorter needle, I'm just going to do one more end off stitch just to secure it in there. And then I'm going to thread my other needle and use that. I'm going to go in and out through the side and trim it. Okay. I'm going to continue making these tufts with my larger needle. This time, in order to avoid the thread coming out of the eye of the needle, I'm going to double knot it. Even with me and all my years' experience, I still do trial and error. Okay, nice length. Let's do this really large knot at the end. I'm going to put, let me see if I could put one more in there. Okay, all right. So now I'm going to go where I don't see any tufts, and I'm going to continue. I'm going to see if it pulls. You see, I didn't end off there. Oh, guys, I'm lucky with this one. Look at that one. It's staying. Awesome. I'm going to end off here. There we go. Oh, yeah. All right. And just continue until you have all the tufts you want on your cotton candy. We added more tufts all around the cotton candy, and it is officially done. You know, what you can do in between here is sew little shiny beads or like, you know, something glittery and cute just to give it a pop of sparkle there. But I kind of left mine plain. Anyway, I hope you enjoy this and you get a lot of compliments from it. Hey, if you really love making plushies like this, why don't you check out my other video on how to make a baby Yeti just as easy and just as cute. See you in the next video.